It is time for the last word, and this is maybe something we should have led the podcast off with. Because Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla, who I am actually increasingly becoming a fan of. I think he's a little on the weird side. I think he's a lot on the weird side. But you always know what he thinks, because when you ask him a question, he's going to answer. And he wasn't even asked a question about this, Ice. He wants to bring back fighting. He was on 98.5, the Sports Hub in Boston. He was asked about ideas for rule changes. He says, start quote, "The biggest thing we rob people of from an entertainment standpoint is you can't fight anymore. I wish you could bring back fighting. How come in baseball they're allowed to clear benches? Baseball players ain't black." That's the simple answer to this question, Ice. Baseball players ain't black. Now, Ice, since you were conceived in 1995, 96, you didn't actually see a lot of the major brawls that happened actually in front of the commissioner. I think that was JoJo English and Pete Myers in 1994 in the Bulls Knicks semifinals. In front of David Stern and his wife, them dudes was going to get suspended. Knicks Heat in those playoff series in 97 and 98. Remember, for those of you who are not born in 1996, Jeff Van Gundy hanging onto Alonzo Mourning's leg for dear life after Alonzo and Larry Johnson were swinging back and forth, and none of those punches actually connected. And then the fight of my lifetime, Ice. You know what the fight of my lifetime is? The Malice at the Palace, right? 2004, November 19th. I'm going to tell y'all a quick story, Ice. I was in college at the time. I was coming home, like a friend's birthday thing was at a bowling alley or something. So I was driving home and I was listening to the game in my car. Like, this is how old the car was back then. I had the detachable stereo face because cars was getting their stereos jacked. So I had the detachable face. So the game was just about ending. And I was like, oh, I'll just throw this CD in to listen to it. Remember CDs? I don't know if anybody remembers CDs. But my sister calls and she says, they're fighting at the game. And I'm like, oh, you know, it's a rivalry. Of course they're fighting at the game, whatever. She was like, no, Vinny, they're fighting at the game, as in the players are fighting the fans. And I was like, wait, what? Face back on, all this stuff. And it's, you know, it's pandemonium at the Palace. And then I get to the bowling alley and I see what happens and everything else. And from that point on, that was Ron Artest and all of his Ron Artestisms. That was like a week after Ron Artest said he wanted to take time off from the Pacers to promote a rap album. Steven Jackson, before we really knew all of Steven Jackson's movies, right? On the other side, you had Ben Wallace, who nobody wants problems with, including Ben Wallace's brother, who came really, really close to knocking somebody clean out, right? Rasheed Wallace, Derek Coleman, like that. If that happened today, Ice, Twitter would blow up. Thank goodness Twitter wasn't around. But Joe Mazzulla, that's the reason why we can't have fighting, because nobody wants to see black dudes fighting in front of white people.
I agree with you.
Now, Ice, Ice, because Ice had all the stuff to say before. Okay. Well,
I guess I agree with you. Honestly, okay, this is really my thought. There's no fighting in the NBA because they're already friends. Like, everybody is clearly friends. Everybody clearly finishes games and hangs out together. Everybody clearly is finishing the season and it's the first people that they're getting on the yacht with. Everybody's friends. It's people from other teams. It's not your teammates. Like, I cover the W a lot. And it's only 144 women who play. So it's a very small group, right? Everybody kind of got to be friends. It's fights in the W. Because, yeah, we're friends in the off season. When we're overseas. When we're both playing for China. But in this season, currently, you are not my friend. I don't think the NBA has that mentality. I don't think it's that competitive. I think some of these guys are like, I'm happy my friend played well today. Against me.
I think that's a bit strong. I think guys are competitive, but I do think that the money has changed things in such a way that you don't look at the guy in front of you as the guy that's preventing you from getting your money. I think when you're looking at 144 players, a smaller sample size, you know that you could be a top 5 pick in the W and not make the roster. So you know you are singing for your supper every night. That's not the case in the NBA. And because of the AAU culture
point.
and everything else, and the fact that these dudes really don't want to fight, I'll tell you this. Now, sometimes dudes do want to fight. Like in a heated moment, sometimes dudes do. But then they hear that voice in their heads. Hey, man, that suspension is going to cost you a game check. That game check might be $500,000. You don't want them problems. I think, however, the threat of a fight, not the actual fight, Ice, but the threat of a fight would curtail some of this behavior. Like the Dylan Brooks of the world, where he out here trying to body slam Victor Wembanyama. If he firmly believed that there was a Charles Oakley, Rick Mahorn type of dude waiting on the other side to come in there and knock him upside his head, A, that'd make for better basketball because you'd have to really watch watch over your shoulder. And B, we'd see how tough you really were. Like it's not to me about the actual.
I think that about Draymond Green. You say Dylan Brooks. I think that about Draymond.
We've seen Draymond's movies. Draymond put a man in a $1 million dream sleeper hold. Okay.
Okay. But same thing. If you thought that somebody around the league,
are you trying to say that Draymond Green is not as tough as he purports himself to be? I
think if somebody hit back, yeah.
I like it. Now,
but you feel about this man.
I think there are tough guys in the league. I think there are fewer tougher guys in the NBA, by and large, because that type of play has been legislated out. You can't just be out here in the NBA without a strong skill set. And your skill set is, I'm a rebounder and I'm stopping you from dunking on me. It ain't going to be a place for that in today's game. I think there should be. I think fans relate to that more. That's why you see all the nostalgia and the 30 for 30s. It's not because the quality of the basketball was so great and so skilled and everything else. It was that you felt the heat of the competition. And now because, the NBA is the league where it's the most proximity from players to fans, you do not want to risk players going into stands with fans because that's lawsuits, that's a bunch of other different things. And that's, once again, y'all, America don't want to see black players fighting. Not on TV, not in HD, not on Meta with your binoculars and your glasses, not in your suites, none of that. That's how we got the dress code, which I thought was really actually racist or had some levels of racist undertones. But I thought the dress code actually worked. And I feel like we need the dress code back because these dudes act like they don't know how to dress when they come to work. But that's a story for a whole nother discussion. And I feel like Joe Mazzulla, if nothing else, I like the fact that Joe Mazzulla is willing to put himself out there and say things that may not go with the grain. I'm not saying hateful things because a lot of people believe that saying hateful things is I'm just going against the grain and speaking my mind. What he said wasn't hateful. What he said wasn't harmful. He was just speaking of, hey, maybe there can be some vigilante justice and some people won't be out here acting a plumb fool. And yes, America, you can handle it. I'm saying no, America, y'all can't.